When Captain Toad Treasure Tracker was first announced, I had very mixed emotions. My very first Nintendo-themed plush was a Toad. I've been holding on to this baby for 15 years. And Captain Toad is the first game with Toad as the main character since, like, Wario's Woods in 1994. But Captain Toad is also, at face value, an extension of a mode we've already seen in Super Mario 3D World for the Wii U. Here, these were fun little puzzle stages with Toad using a big exception. You can't jump like Mario normally can. Or the other Toad. His equipment's heavy, okay? These modes were a fun way to break up the main Mario adventure, but I was a little skeptical that this mode alone could hold its own for an entire game, even as a $40 budget title. It seems like something that would fit well as a low-cost mobile or tablet game, but after getting my hands on it, I quickly realized how wrong this is. The groundwork for Captain Toad is laid out by what we've seen in 3D World, but there have been a few positive changes. Your goal still remains the same. Rotate each individual island-like world around while navigating the jumpless Toad or Toadette through various environmental puzzles. Instead of 5 green stars, you'll now be tracking 3 gems and 1 golden star. The most welcome change is the lack of a timer. There's no rush at all through most of the stages, instead focusing on time to sit and solve each upcoming puzzle. The level design is everything you've come to expect from a Mario-themed title. Lots of creativity with a unique gameplay element in almost every stage. For a game that really only requires you to press one button to play it, there's a shocking amount of variety here. It's been a long while since I've said this, but Treasure Tracker is actually a game that uses the GamePad quite well. Some stages you might use the GamePad to shoot enemies in first person with a turnip cannon, while others you might rotate the screen to alter platforms. You can also hold your finger on many enemies and obstacles to freeze them, which evolves from a nifty trick to a necessary gameplay mechanic later in the game. The only thing with the gamepad that I don't like is that the screen tilts as you tilt the controller's gyroscope, and there's no way to turn this off. I prefer rotating the camera with the right analog stick, so occasionally the stage would swivel a little if I moved the gamepad at all. It's not that hard to play while holding the controller still, but it's a small thing I wish I could have the option to remove. It's been a long time since I've played a puzzle game that forced me to move actively while solving along the way, and while it's not exactly the same, this game often gave me that same positive cognitive energy that I got while playing one of my favorite games of all time, Portal. Every time you pull off a cool trick to move onward, it just feels good. Whether it's solving a puzzle with multiple Toads controlled at the same time, or using an enemy's giant projectile as a catapult, it's just genuinely rewarding to master each new trick. Treasure Tracker is deceptively simple at face value, but this is definitely the kind of game that's a completionist's dream. Simply grabbing the golden star at the end of each stage is just one minor portion of the challenge. It's almost impossible not to have the urge of collecting all 3 gems in each stage. And then there's coins stashed all over the place, many of them in extremely tricky locations that encourage you to go well out of the way of the goal to collect. And on top of that, every stage has its own individual goals. Many of these bonus goals require you to play through in an entirely different way than usual, such as avoiding enemies, allowing each of the 80+ stages to be played multiple times before you've truly completed everything. Sometimes it can be a little frustrating finding out the solution to a secret puzzle only after you've already passed it, but on the bright side, even if you do get a game over, the game keeps track of each gem that you've found, allowing you to ignore retracking some of your treasure. I know I'm becoming a broken record at this point, but Treasure Tracker still carries all the visual qualities of a Nintendo-produced Wii U game. Lots of color, gorgeous set pieces, 60 frames per second, all the same stuff you hear from me every time I talk about a Nintendo game these days. But in general, Treasure Tracker's visuals are just a small part of a big picture. This is one of the most relaxing games I've ever played. The combination of color, cheery soundtrack, and the ridiculously bubbly Toad and Toadette, this is just a charm overload. It just puts you in a good mood in a way that very few other games can. There is a definite difficulty to be found here, especially in the game's extra long third act, but that difficulty is very rarely presented alongside stress. There are infrequent levels where you need to think on your feet more than others, but these are appropriately saved for big boss battles, which often test you with a variety of puzzle-solving skills that you've learned along the journey. 18 bonus stages can be unlocked if you have a Super Mario 3D World save file on your Wii U. This was my second favorite game of 2013 and I highly recommend it, but regardless, the extra levels you unlock are a mixed bag. There are some challenges which I enjoy in here, but there's also a few that are just stages taken directly from Super Mario 3D World, but played as the non-jumping Toad. These levels are huge and filled with coins, but overall they aren't so much a challenge in concise puzzle solving as they are just a very long walk in the park. Regardless, these are still optional bonus stages, and they aren't a huge damper. They're just a little boring. To say Captain Toad Treasure Tracker does a lot would be a huge understatement, but it definitely delivered a lot more than I expected. It's long, unique, simply adorable, and it's one of very few games in the Wii U library that actually proves that there are fun gameplay experiences to be had using the system's unique controller. If you're more acclimated to the fast-paced gameplay that Mario games deliver, Captain Toad might run a little slow for your tastes. But if you enjoy puzzle games in any capacity, this is a must-own. It's pretty rare that the puzzle genre sees life these days on a video game console, in much part because of the success that puzzle games have seen in the mobile market. But Captain Toad proves that even with a simple concept, level design and polish can make a large puzzle experience that phones and tablets simply can't deliver.